Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome to coffee and video games. Here's the coffee. Today in a South Sea tourist mug. South Sea is the most wonderful part of Portsmouth, of course, by the seaside. And we're here to talk about video games. This is the podcast-like show. Every Sunday we stream this at 10 a.m. I got a little bit of business to talk about. First off, actually. But yes, this is the time where I come and just spill my brains. I talk about video games, whatever I've been thinking about. What's going on up here? Talking about whatever's been going on in my head about video games while drinking coffee. And this is actually my first coffee of the day because, believe it or not, I ran out. I had to have tea first thing, which is fine. I like tea, but not first thing. I had to go out to Tesco Express. Yeah. And I had to buy more coffee. So there we go. This is the first one. Let's get the brain sharp and alert to the day. And today, in a little bit, we're going to be talking about 7 out of 10. Mate, we're going to be talking about the middle of the road reviews inspired by some conversation around a September 13th interview with Suda51 on gamesindustry.biz, where he said something about Metacritic, which we'll get to. I know it's old, but it's taken this long to formulate in my brain. So we talk every Sunday morning on twitch.tv, the Restart Collective. We talk about video games while drinking coffee. That video then goes live on YouTube one Sunday after. So this video is being recorded live, streamed live on the 22nd. It will come out on YouTube on the 29th of September. And I say this because, actually, the first episode that went up last Sunday, episode 0, did surprisingly well for us. You know, it did okay. It's a little bit down. We're peaking this mic a little too much. There we go. That's a little better. Yeah, it did pretty good, didn't it? For me, about 112 views, 3 comments. Small potatoes, I know, but I was very pleased with that. So I take a little more care in responding to stuff like that. So thank you guys for watching. If you're watching this one, if you watch more things and you're watching now episode 2, which is episode 3, because that's the 0 was kind of a pilot. It was kind of like figuring it out. We're still figuring out. I still don't know how this is going to look, long term. But this, yeah, just cheers for those people for coming and commenting, and it's letting us know your opinion, because it was just nice to hear people, engaging with it. And I didn't know about it till way after, because I didn't really expect anyone to comment. So maybe I'll try and be a bit more active in replying to comments in the future as well. It goes very against my not being on social media or personality type, but yeah, maybe we will. Maybe we'll have some fun. Anyway, so let's talk about some video games. So, before we get into the meat and potatoes of it, more potatoes, lots of potato references today. We'll try and stop that immediately. Right. Yeah, what have we been playing? What has everyone been doing? What have you been doing with your life? Tell me about what you've been playing this week. I can tell you what I've been playing. I've been playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on hard mode still, very slowly. Having fun with that. Having a good time. Not much more to say. Everyone knows about that game already. You either like it or you don't, I expect. I like it a lot. I'm having fun. I just got up to the Gold Saucer last night. So, yeah, hard mode's been fun. It's been fun. I don't think I've hit any of the big brick wall bosses yet. I've managed to sort of get through it just by mixing up materia and figuring it out. So we haven't had any wall market fighting the Hell House moments yet. I'm sure that'll come in time. I've also been playing that Bomberman Wars on the PS1. You know that Bomberman Wars was a Japanese Bomberman strategy game. It only came out on the PS1 and sat in Japan. I got an English fan translated reproduction copy for the PlayStation 1 original PlayStation I've been playing. Okay, it's quite fun. It's quite fun. It's like chess, and it's kind of like a strategy RPG. That Bomberman Wars, though, yes indeed, Jamesy. We need to get you. James is talking to me in a private message chat. We need to get that man a Twitch account. So that would be way more convenient for me personally. But yes, that Bomberman Wars is good. You know what I actually think? That Bomberman Wars, though, will be. I think it's designed to be a multiplayer game, because I've kind of got to the point now where those battles, like the AI is not super great. I've got a bunch of troops now, a bunch of different, different classes in my, my setup. You could choose. You get your king, and then you could choose 4 more of your choice with their pros and cons. It's become quite easy. It's become easier as it's gone on. I don't know if that's going to change. Maybe it will. But then I kind of feel like it's traditional Bomberman, man. Like maybe the multiplayer is where it's at. So we need to have a look at that at some point. I think that's what it's meant to be. I think it's meant to be multiplayer. It's not. It doesn't really have a story either. I mean, it's got a story, but not really. So. Yeah, we got to try that multiplayer sometime tonight as well. Tonight is it's my invitational that I do here to some of my pals, where it's the second one. We play video games in a competitive manner. Sega Bass Fishing. That's tonight, so that's gonna be good. Getting my rod hand ready. Getting my rod. That's how you do it. That looks like more like one of them lucky cats. Yes, you better be visiting. Yeah, come around earlier. I'll message you after the thing, James, and we'll sort that out. I'll be free a lot of the day, so after the F1 is finished. But so what are we talking about today? We're talking about video games, of course, with the coffee. Italian inspired, but not from Italy. Sourced from various places. I don't know what that means. I guess it means that the beans they're just mixing and matching them from wherever. That seems more difficult than just coming from one place. But hey, that's what the pack says. It's fine anyway. It's fine. It's cheap, but it's fine. I wanted to talk about this thing that Mr. 51, Suda 51 said, a couple of weeks ago nearly in this article. Because I think it's quite interesting, actually. And I want to read some of the quotes. We'll read it together. So I got it here. Here we go. We're going to transition. So this is GameIndustry.biz, and there's Mr. 51, and he said, everybody pays too much attention to and cares too much about Metacritic scores. It's gotten to the point where there's almost a set formula. If you want to get a high Metacritic score, this is how you make a game. If you've got a game that doesn't fit into that formula, that marketability scope, it loses on points on Metacritic. The biggest companies might not want to deal with that kind of thing. That might be the main reason, but that's certainly one reason why everyone cares too much about the numbers. Personally, I don't care too much about the Metacritic numbers. I'm not really conscious of them. What's important to us is putting the games out that we want to put out and having people playing the game that we want to play and be able to play. So that's that's the gist of it. So I've seen some discussion around this. Yes, I have. I've seen some discussion about these quotes, these things that Mr. Suda51 said to GamesIndustry.biz. So I kind of wanted to explore it because I think he's saying some things that I've always kind of thought in my head as well. So a couple of the reactions that I've seen is one, and this will inspire something else a bit later that we're going to do. I saw someone saying that sounds like the sort of thing someone would say who released a bunch of 7 out of 10 games. well, person on website, I forget which one who said that. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. 7 out of 10 is interesting, and we're going to keep a hold of that later. And we're going to have a look at some Metacritic scores. And the other things that I've seen people saying as well is about this. Okay, so you can use Metacritic, and it's a 7 out of 10, or if it's in that range, yeah, that might warrant looking into it a bit more. Whereas like a 9 out of 10 is maybe more of an instant buy. I don't necessarily agree with that point either. We're just setting the stage here. But yeah, okay, fair enough. Okay, and the other little part that I've seen, the reaction I've seen a few times is this idea that people giving examples of games that have got these like 90 plus or high 80s on Metacritic that are actually, they're not the cut and paste type of game. Maybe your Tears of the Kingdoms and Mario Odysseys, God of Wars, although God of War, I'd argue, is kind of, as good as it is, it does fit in the sort of formula for success, if you will, that he might be talking about here, because I don't know what's in his brain. I kind of wanted to start there because that's not my reading of what he's saying. I might be wrong, but I think he's talking about the companies that want to fund, you're talking about your big studios funding a game. This is maybe the way that they look at it. Like, I think he is talking about fans as well, but let's look at it from that point of view. Is if something a studio might want to invest time into, they want it to get a good Metacritic score, because in theory a good Metacritic score means good sales, right? And that's what they want. They want good sales. I don't think it's really too much of a stretch to suggest that big companies now are, they're maybe risk adverse. I think that's a pretty common thing that people would say, right? There's a lot of money in these games these days, and they need them to succeed. So they're not really going to take big risks, are they? Unless the person making the game, like maybe a Hideo Kojima type, someone with that level of pull, is a bit of a different case, or a really well-known IP like those Marios and Zeldas and, games of that level. They've got the wiggle room, the sort of earned wiggle room to be able to experiment a little bit more, take their time and be a bit more creative, because everyone knows everyone's going to buy those games anyway, right? People are going to buy them regardless. So or the person has just got enough sway, like within the realm of the video game world. So I think that might be what he's talking about. But he might be talking about a fan reaction as well, looking at people caring too much about Metacritic scores. I think arguing about Metacritic scores is probably one of the most pointless things you can do, although I will do it. I will fight you over your ranking, your personal opinion. Mine is more right, of course. They can be fun discussions to have in the right circumstances with the right company, right? But obviously, if you enjoy a game, you enjoy a game. That's kind of the it's a bit boring, but that is the truth of the matter, isn't it? That's the number one thing. But the main thing that got me thinking about it, it's had my brain ticking since this quote came up, was that little 7 out of 10 comment. And I kind of think that this is where me and Mr. 51 are. I need to stop calling him Mr. 51. It seemed funny. I think it's losing its edge. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll continue. Yeah. Anyway, me and Suda51 have a like-minded idea. I think is on this. I've long advocated being Mr. Easy E on when we do the we do the Let's Plays. Have argued about this, I believe, in the past, because he loves performance. He loves 60 FPS, 120 FPS even. God knows how much FPS that man wants. Too many. Too much FPS. I really enjoy a lot of games that could be considered like janky or whatever, like rough around the edges, but have that kind of creative spark, that kind of like difference. I will overlook a lot if the game hooks me in those really creative ways. So I think some good examples would be, always in order. So number one game I always go to, because I think it's I don't know if it's still a darling. It's still got its fans though. But Deadly Premonition, right? Perfect example of a polarizing game. Like, some people could not get past the the production values. Some people can't get past the bugs, which have become more numerous in its re-releases, and other issues with that too. Some people can't get past like the voice acting, all kinds of stuff, right? I think the combat actually got worse, but I'd have to compare and contrast as well. But it got easier at least. Not sure. I mean, a lot of people will say that combat is like the part they like the least about Deadly Premonition, or I kind of like it, and it's sort of like Resident Evil 4, but not goodness. I got a soft spot for it. I like the enemies. Very memorable, at least for me. But that's a game that completely divided critics. Sorry, I just kicked something over there. But it's one of my favourites. I can go back and play Deadly Premonition any gosh darn day of the week. I'll do it. I'll do it today if I have to. I will, just to prove a point. That's exactly the sort of game that I'm talking about. The game that has it's got this auteuristic quality, perhaps. It's definitely got a atmosphere, a style, all very unique to itself. And those elements like far outweigh its technical shortcomings for me. I would every day, night and day, play a game like that. Then I think, maybe the sort of games that Suda51 might be talking about in his article, like the very I mean, even a game these days, like the Spider-Man games, right, are very the newer Sony ones, or I forget who makes them, Insomniac, right? People love those games, right? They love those Spider-Man games. Gotta love those Spider-Man games. I'm not a bit, I played the first one, I liked it well enough, but, I just kind of bounced off it after a while, and that's happened a few times with that, and I think that's in the realm of what he might be talking about, that very high quality, that looks great, performs great, good story probably, well voice acted, well motion captured, all that sort of stuff. Existing IP that people go nuts for, but it just didn't work for me, brother. Liked it enough, but after a while, I just felt I kind of seen and done this game before. Like, once you kind of get over the traversal, the world traversal. This isn't any kind of judgment on people that like Spider-Man. Lots of people like Spider-Man, and that's great. But it just didn't really grip me. And that's happened quite a lot, with some of these, some of these good-ass video games. I'm sure they are very good, but it just hasn't worked. I think you could even look at like some FromSoft games in that matter, especially the old ones like, Demon Souls and stuff. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole in particular. But there's I think being a Sega fan kind of trains you for this. I think a lot of Sega games have that exact quality, right? They've got that exact... they've done this a lot, especially in the Dreamcast era that I'm very fond of, A lot of games have a lot of issues, but I are still in my personal all-time favourites. Spoke about Space Channel 5 last week, and a lot of people don't like that game, don't get on with it. They think that the input timing is wrong or too precise. Two very conflicting ideas there, but still, those are the things I've read. But for me, it's goddamn, I wouldn't change a thing. Jet Set Radio, bad camera, some, probably other issues that people have with it. Not me. One of my favorites. Absolutely. Crazy Taxi's got 2 levels. All-time classic in my mind. You could keep going with Dreamcast, and I will. Shenmue. A lot of people are very mixed on that one these days. This isn't just nostalgia talking. I play Shenmue in modern times and love it. I think we all forget as well that there's a slight tangent, but I know memory will do a lot. Maybe my memory is working differently. I don't think so, but maybe we'll entertain that idea. But I think a lot of people forget a lot of these flaws. People talk about games aging. Yeah, a lot of these flaws were pointed out at the time too. Maybe we were more forgiving of them then. I don't know, but we definitely pointed out the flaws. People were a little, people weren't fully on board with the Shenmue having to walk back and go to bed and have to wait for the next thing to happen when it happens, sort of thing, and driving the forklift and stuff. All of these were complaints people had at the time. They weren't suddenly discovered, 10 years after the fact. This is where I don't want to talk about Sonic every damn podcast, but obviously I wanted to get there eventually on this one because I think that fits in very well with what we're talking about. I think a lot of Sonic games are in that range, right? That 7 out of 10 range. And I'm talking about consensus. I'm not talking about personal opinion, right? I'm not talking about what you think, the individual. I'm talking about what people kind of settle on as a population. And those Sonic games tend to end up in that mixed camp, right? We've had arguments since, the classic games you could were considered good at the time, but people have had a little revisionist history on that, or come around to a different idea that even those games were not good at the time, and it was the spectacle of it that fooled everyone into having fun. Obviously, I don't agree with that at all, but it's an opinion. It's out there. Some people will hold it to be true, and that's fine. And especially since the games went 3D, right? I think everyone is on board with that idea that there's never really been. I think the adventure games, they did well critically at the time, but even when they were getting re-released on the GameCube, their scores were were coming down, right? To probably somewhere where we would. I mean, obviously the Adventure 1 port was bad, but even Adventure 2, which was 6 months or something after it came out, its review score, as I recall, I don't have evidence for this, but as I recall it, it definitely was getting harsher review treatment even then. But time moved differently then. At least it did for me. But yeah, a lot of those games that have come out since, I really love. I love games like Sonic Unleashed and more recently Sonic Frontiers. I think there's a level of gameplay expression and freedom that comes with an almost necessary level of jank, I guess, because of just what Sonic is. So we can do a deep dive on that someday maybe, but just as a broad thing, just with the speed, that kind of fast momentum sometimes based stuff, skipping levels and things like that, and some of the speedrunny kind of tech that comes from it too. I think that's always going to come with a level of jank, isn't it? It's always going to come with a level of brokenness, maybe. That's how I feel. Even you look at Sonic CD, which you could argue is close to similar-ish to the design philosophy of the Sonic Frontiers open zones, especially with its almost haphazard placing of shit everywhere. But those games have that kind of almost higher skill ceiling, um, the higher level of creativity, where if you can get into the flow of moving about stuff, yeah, like there's real joy in that. But a lot of people are just going to bounce off it and be like, this is an unfocused mess. And I think both things are almost true. That's fine. So this is just how I feel. James, not the one that was chatting to me that I was responding to, but the one that I live stream with every Thursday on twitch.tv/The Restart Collective, playing old games. He mentioned once when we were having this debate, a sort of like why not both idea, or that like he's less forgiving of technical issues. I'm very much it's not that I don't care. I mean, I do care, but like I will look past them without second thought, so long as I'm still having fun, or like there's enough of the game to draw me in. But he kind of feels like every game should be hitting. He'll probably get upset for me for misquoting him, but like the gist of it is he thinks the games should be aiming for a certain level of fidelity, I guess, and technical performance, whereas I just don't care. I think obviously there's a level where it's too much, and that line will be different depending on the game. I think one game that's an interesting case study from recent times might be Balan Wonderworld. And this is something I've thought about at the time. One of the things, now Balan got a lot of deserved flack for a lot of different reasons. I actually had a reasonable amount of fun with Balan, never enough to finish it, but enough to play over half of it before I got complete. I found I just got bored of it at that point. I wasn't frustrated or anything, but yeah, it's always been one in the back of my mind, like I should go back to that. Because I was having an amount of fun, but I actually do admire the game's approach. So, in case you don't know, in Balan Wonderworld, it's like a platforming game, but it's a one button game, and you can get costumes from enemies. Or just you find them about the place, sorry. You get costumes, and if you get hit, that's like your hit point, you lose your costume. And when you don't have your costume, you can't really do anything. And each costume gives you like one function on that one button. And that's the gist of it. I really liked that idea. I think that's really interesting. But one of the things that it got slated for at the time was that you had to have a costume just for jumping, that this platform game didn't have a jump button. Like the function of some of these costumes was to jump, some often with an added effect for a lot of them, like one has like basically a sonic homing attack, for instance, but like some of them is like it is just a jump very early on, but and you can equip 3 at a time. I don't remember if I said that. So you can have 3 like abilities, and whatever, if you get hit, whatever one you're wearing, you lose, and then you have to kind of trudge back and get equip it again, or find another one, or go to the checkpoint and equip it, because one that you've got saved there. And that's where I will admit that the game has some definite pacing issues around that, because that can be just quite frustrating. I don't think they really got the right balance between challenge and frustration on that one. I think it just became more frustrating to have to go back and go through menus just to get a costume. That's kind of annoying, but I did enjoy it past those faults for a while, because I really enjoyed so many. I mean, visually, it's I think a really interesting game. I like the visual style a lot. I really like the music. I actually really like the stupid singing bits at the end of the levels. I know that's something that got memed on, but I don't know why particularly. They're just fun little musical bits where they speak in gibberish. It's good fun. But I have a weird brain. I like weird things, so there is that. I'll admit that. But I don't even think that you can call Balan a 7 out of 10, but it's definitely a flawed game. But I always felt like it got a bit more criticism than it deserved. I think in another time, that would be like, well, like, yeah. Do you remember that weird game? Yeah, that was kind of cool. Like, but like, not the best, but it was a kind of cool idea. I think that's where Balan should live, in that realm. Not this game was trash. There was nothing good about it, because there's a lot of really good things about it. I think it just needed more, which a lot of games needed a bit more time or a bit more thought or whatever. But I certainly found Balan Wonderworld more interesting than Spider-Man, which might sound insane, but that's where we're going with this. Or God of War, the PS4 one, just called God of War, Dad of Boy, that one. And it's unquestionably a less good game, right? It's unquestionably a less good game. Sorry, I'm clicking the pen. I can't help it. But I had more fun with Balan Wonderworld than I did with those games and others. Maybe I had less fun with it than Ghost of Tsushima. I did play about half of that game. I got really into Ghost of Tsushima and then just stopped after 20 or so hours. Balan's certainly more memorable, though, to me. A lot of Ghost of Tsushima is like a blur of like kind of the same things, right? I don't remember specific hot springs or specific challenges or anything really about that. But that's just me, and that's kind of the point in all of that. Is that just me? And maybe we do care too much about the scores. I don't know. But I did have a second little experiment in mind. I say experiment. It's not really an experiment. That's giving it too much credit. But I wanted to look at. I got Metacritic up here. We're gonna go over to it here. Here it is. Here's Metacritic. And if you can see, I'm on page 233 of the best games of all time, where it just lists them by its Metascore. Because this is where it goes from green score to yellow score. And so yellow score is kind of I think that's the game, that's the type of game we're talking about, right? Now I don't think we want to look at every single yellow game on here. Yellow being 74 to... I actually don't know what the lower threshold is. Maybe we're about to find out. Yeah, just to see what games are in there, man. And I'm very interested in what the cutoff is. I haven't looked ahead. I got here, saw that it was yellow. I haven't seen any of the game names. But I am interested. So let's have a look together. So the cutoff is Flock and Carrion. I know what Carrion is. That's on my backlog. Carrion is a game where you play as like a monster. So this is right on the cusp. It's right fucking here at the top. Right on the cusp. So there we go. I don't know what that says. Because in my mind, Carrion is kind of a liked game. I wonder what the user score is. Okay, mostly in the same ballpark, right? Okay. So there's an agreement. But I think most people would say that Carrion is... what happened here? Things have changed somehow. I don't know how Metacritic works. We got Resident Evil Revelations 2 here as well, right on the cusp. A game that I did like quite a bit. Played that in the pandemic. I think I played this when I was still technically off work with COVID the first time I got it. Because I was playing... Resident Evil 6, I was going through all of them when I got COVID the first time. Well, I got really sick, so I didn't play anything for a while. But I was off for something like 15 days. I wasn't allowed to come back to work. And I'd say for at least half that time, I was well enough to play video games. So I was playing Resident Evil 6, I believe, when I caught COVID. And then when I felt well enough, this would have been next, I think, chronologically. So I remember liking this. Not as much as the first one. So let's go. I don't know what a lot of the games are going to be. Dead or Alive. This which one is this? 5. Is that the most newest one? Or is that 6? I know people didn't really get on with 6. This is one of the free-to-play ones, right? Although this seems to be the PS4 version. Let's open it up. But, that's interesting. I don't know the general opinion of Dead or Alive. I couldn't tell you, but I'd actually say this score here for Sonic the Hedgehog 4 is it's a bit generous, in my opinion. But yeah, fits right in. I like this game-ish. I liked it at the time, I can tell you that much. So, this one I think is really interesting, but I haven't played it yet. But it's on the buy list, I believe. Let's see. I want to see some games I know. There's a lot of games on here. Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris. I like that game. Actually, hard to believe that's a 74, right? Because I think people really like these games. These are the little multiplayer, like isometric puzzly ones. So this surprises me that this is a yellow game. Do we need more of these? I would say absolutely. I would love another one of these games to come out for sure. Play that with my pals. I really liked what I've played of I don't remember if it was this one or the other one. Raiden 4. Okay. I'm obviously not going to know all of them. So we're right at the top anyway right now with the cutoff here. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. Oh, what happened? I went to the bottom. I'm sorry. What's the worst game of all time on Metacritic? The Legend of Zelda. It doesn't have a score. It's actually Family Party for the Wii U. Cool. Back we go. Sorry. Right. We were meant to click here. Destroy all humans. I know people like that. We haven't proved anything yet. I'm just trying to get a feel, and I want to see if people end up watching this on YouTube, tell me what you think of some of these games. Do we need more of this sort of thing? I saw a bunch of these games when I was putting together my list of retro games I wanted to buy, and they looked very interesting based on an anime, but the idea of a football game with a story is, it's cool. So that's a weird one. Oh, it's the PS5 one. That was actually a very interesting... This brings up a whole other debate, don't you think? Because I remember this Metal Gear Solid Master Collection, so it's not one specific game. I would wager most people consider the first 3 Metal Gear Solid games to be, classics, right? That's not controversial. I do, certainly. And yet, this obviously got a lot of flack at the time because they didn't do much to the games, right? In this HD re-release or whatever, they just upscaled the first one and 2 and 3, I believe they took the PS3 era HD games and just upscaled those. So people were upset they didn't put that much effort in, which I do get the meaning. I mean, I certainly understand, especially depending on the price and of what you're charging for it. But at the end of the day, there's nothing. They're still the same games. I don't think they broke anything, to my knowledge. They just play the same way they've always done, which is, some of the best games ever made. So something to keep in mind. Keep in mind that Hot Shot Racing. There you go. This is exactly potentially the sort of thing I'm talking about, because I really did enjoy this game quite a bit on the Switch. It's if you don't know it, it's what's the name of the studio? Sumo Digital, I think, made this. So it's got kind of that like Outrun 2-ish kind of feel to it, but it's designed with like to look like a flat polygon racer from the early to mid 90s. I did find the rubber banding kind of frustrating on it, but other than that, it's a very niche kind of game. Not the game that you would expect to get like 90s or high 80s. So, probably this score is fair, right? Because it's targeting a specific kind of audience, and that audience is me. I'm one of those people. So this is where we need more of this sort of thing, right? I do actually start to worry, because I know we've had a lot of indie has filled in the hole of more niche titles, right? Where the big companies won't do it anymore. I am starting to worry that bubble starting to burst, because you hear a lot of, especially these days, of people being laid off and everything. The most recently, the Penny's Big Breakaway studio having to lay off some people because they couldn't afford to have them. That game, I think, must have, to me, that game performed kind of how I expected. If it's not a massive hit, it's very difficult for an indie studio, right? So, yeah. I worry that even they'll have to, be aiming to be safer. Although I think there'll always be more people taking risks when it's a personal project like that. But hey, moving on. Capcom Classics Collection. I guess you could say similar thing, but we won't dwell on that. Legend of Dragoon. Oh, fuck me. Sorry. I just wanted to play this. Isn't this one that everyone loves? At least the JRPG guys. Let me know. I've always wanted to play that one. Let's move on a bit. You guys can get an idea of the type of games I like as well, because we're skipping over a lot, obviously. A Smash Court Tennis, one I haven't played, but would like to. Probably great. Nothing really there. We're still in the 74s. I don't know if you know, but there's a lot of bloody video games out there. Banana Blitz. This is the one where they had boss battles, right? And the jump button. I'd say that's fair. Is this Dead Rising 2? Is that Dead Rising 2 actually Dead Rising 2? Or is this like a weird... No, it's a DLC. Okay, go on. So we're getting a lot of there's a lot of what you expect, right, in here. I'm looking for those weird ones. I'm looking for those Suda51-esque. Speak of the devil, right? Here he is, Killer 7. Now, people love this game, right? This is a beloved. I always get this mixed up with 13, but we scrolled right past 13, right? This is a Suda51 game, right? If not, it's exactly the sort of game I'm talking about. One of those ones I've always wanted to play. Bit of a weird one, right? Binary Domain. People also love this game. It's funny the way that time softens out that, like... here you go. Penny's Big Breakaway also sitting in here as if they were listening to my very voice. I don't know how long can we sit here looking at Metacritic. I could do it for a little while longer. I might skip ahead a bit soon. So we're seeing these ones in the high. Let's sort of aim for, say, the mid-range, right? Let's aim for, like, a bit further along. Let's go a bit further than this. And then we'll look at the bottom of the yellow range. Here we go, just a little bit more. I'm looking for flat 70. So let's go a little further along. Okay. Let's see what game's at a flat 7 out of 10. Oh, Jet Set. That's the HD version. I don't know what the Dreamcast one would be. Shall I have a look? Let's just type one in there. I know that's Jet Set Radio. Do we have the Dreamcast one on here? I mean, Jet Set Radio Future's got 88. That's kind of cool. Maybe if I put Jet Grind Radio. I don't think the Dreamcast one's on here. So we'll take that as a stand-in. That's one of my favourite games ever. So we're looking for evidence that people care too much about Metacritic scores, and we're cherry picking examples as best we can to suit our agenda. No, I'm just looking for how many games I could see that specifically seem to be in my wheelhouse. And then I'm going to look up my favourite games and see where they fit in as well. So not too much in the dead 70s. Maybe that 74 is where some more collections. I think we'll skip over those. I think we've made our point with, because collections can be bad as well. The DS Sonic collection I remember being quite good though. I certainly played it a lot of the time. Okay. There, the drum game. That's very specific. Mario Golf. Ooh, didn't expect this. That one got much worse reviews than I would have thought. I enjoyed that one enough, but not tons. Right, what do we reckon? Oh, Alice Returns. There's another game that I've always wanted to try. So obviously, yeah, more of that sort of thing, please. This one, I don't know how well this is gonna go in a podcasty format, but hey. Right, let's look at right at the bottom, and then we'll see what conclusions we can draw. 65. I don't know what the cutoff is for red to yellow score. All the way down to 60, because we could be doing this all day, like just scrolling through scores. So, over in the 50s, I would say games in the 50s are they're a little below. You know, that can't be what, you know. I would say a game in the 50s is something that you would actively, generally want to avoid. So, although this game I always thought Spike Out, that always looked pretty good to me. But then I'm a Sega boy. That's certainly on my list of things I want to buy. So, can't always trust them, these reviews. That is some Metacritic. So, inconclusive, right? Obviously. But let's just do one more little experiment. And let's see. Sonic 3. Can we do Sonic 3 and Knuckles? Is that going to work? I don't even think Sonic 3 is going to work. Well, Sonic 3 is here. The Xbox 360 one. That's sitting green. I'll accept that. Shall we try Sonic Adventure? I don't think the first one is. Yeah, because this is the HD version. And it's red. But the Sonic Adventure 2 certainly seems to fit in with my what I'm talking about. So let's look at these examples. Sonic Unleashed, that's got to be low, right? 60. There you go. And Frontiers, that was higher. I think that was right on the cusp. 70. A perfect example. Shenmue. Okay, the Dreamcast one very highly rated. So that's good to see. That's good to see. People had taste. Let's have a look for. We saw Jet Set Radio. Let's try Space Channel 5. Okay, did pretty well. It's in the 70s still. Metal Gear is obviously going to be high. Final Fantasy 7. I'm not even going to try and find them. They'll both be really high. So, back to me. It was an interesting experiment. I don't know what we learnt exactly. Lots to think about though. But I am very interested to see what people think about these comments. I want to hear specifically less about what you think of Suda51 and his games. I don't really know that much about the man. Yeah, I would like to say that. I should have probably said that earlier, but I've always thought his games looked cool, and I've never really had the chance to play a lot of them, or got round to playing a lot of them. I've got the Noble Heroes games on the Wii to try at some point. I don't have Killer 7, I think Shadows of the Damned is the only one I've played all the way through, and I did really like that. But I would definitely put that in a in a kind of like, I enjoyed it. It was a fun, breezy time, but it was never going to be one of my favorites. That certainly was the case with that one. But it was fun and quirky and entertaining all the way through its runtime when I played it, whenever it came out. So I will say that. And I did kind of get into Let It Die for a while, but I didn't make much progress. But yeah, as far as those are free to play kind of like roguelike with that style of gameplay went, I thought it was decent enough. Yeah, probably a perfect 7 out of 10. And I think, yeah, the overall point or the overall feeling for me, and it was just interesting I wanted to just kind of have a look at Metacritic, and you can't really get a good size for that, because there's a billion games on there, and there was way more games we didn't talk about because I've only played so many games or heard of so many games, so I can only kind of go off the ones I recognize and actually know to be something that I enjoy. I would be interested to hear about what do you feel when what do you if a game's coming out and you're interested enough to be looking up its review scores, how much does that impact your buying process, right? If it came out and it got a yellow score, does the color matter to you, or is it a number cutoff? These are the things, right? Because Metacritic says 74. If you get 75, yeah, you're generally favorable reviews. So does that work for you, or are you looking for something in the 80s? What was the one? I remember there was a game ages ago where people missed the bonus, and it was somewhere in the 80s that they didn't get. They were 1 point off. That was a while ago now. So hopefully companies aren't still doing that sort of thing, but they probably are. Yeah. How much does it affect? Because for me, I normally know if I want something, from its, if something, as long as it doesn't come out and have horrible scores, and I already wanted it, then I'm probably still going to get it, as long as it's still, because that game is the kind of game probably would have done a bunch of research on. But the games that, I think Carrion was a really interesting example, and I wish we could have found more like that, because I'm sure they're in there. That's a game I haven't played yet. It's on my very large, as we all have, backlogs. It's 75, so it was technically green, but it was right on the cusp, right? And it was a game that it's really it's got a very unique idea, and sort of wormed its way into my brain enough that it stayed there. That's kind of like my criteria, right? When I'm wishlisting or whatever indie games is, they come up, they bubble to the surface, you hear of them. It's a million indie games I could have put on my list because you hear of them and you're like, oh, that's interesting, because that is where the interesting ideas are. But does it stay in there? Carrion really stayed in there, stayed in the old noggin. I think the art style, the pixel art style, and the monster design and everything is really, really up my alley. So it ended up on the list, and it ended up getting bought because it went on sale at some point. So it would have been nice to find a few more examples like that, because I'm sure they'll be on there. Because I thought of Axiom Verge. Then I thought of Carrion as a game that would have been maybe low 80s, but in the 80s, right? As recommended, because I thought it was, the positivity of it certainly must have been the reason why it came into my sphere, right? You either hear about games because they're really great or because they're really terrible. In the middle, you don't really hear about it. So maybe Carrion divided people more than I realised. But certainly I would potentially, can't say because I haven't tried it yet, but potentially one of the people it appeals to. Yeah, are you the sort of person that, to me, man, if a game gets mixed reviews, it's more interesting in a lot of ways. Like sometimes you look into those mixed reviews and maybe it's not as exciting as it seems, but normally that says to me, potentially, this is going to be something that I really like, because maybe it's getting those mixed reviews. Not always, of course, but maybe it's getting those mixed reviews because it's going for something, right? It's going for something very specific, and it's not going for mass appeal. And this maybe circles back around to, because I think that's what Suda51 said, something about that mass appeal, right? I think inherently, not always, but inherently a lot of the times really great things, really great works have to divide a little bit, because they aren't trying to be all things to all people. They're not going for selling the biggest amount of numbers. They're going for, we wanted to make this thing, we had a vision for it, and for better or worse, we have achieved that to the best of our abilities, our very specific idea. And that's a Suda51 game, right? To my mind. Maybe it is altruistic, That's what Shenmue is, from Yu Suzuki. It's what a Hideo Kojima game might be like, Many more examples out there. Love to hear them. But games that really, we had an idea and we are going to make it, we are going to make our idea come to fruition. I think sometimes those, whether it adheres to common knowledge or accepted norms of what good video game design is, right? Sometimes you got to break a few eggs, I guess. Sort of reminds me of that Elden Ring controversy of some devs getting upset about it because it was badly designed, and there was that famous meme picture of like if Ubisoft made Elden Ring, right? Well, very funny stuff. I don't know how many Ubisoft games get super high Metacritic scores anymore now, so maybe it is turning, but I do think there is something to this argument that he's making. But I guess that's it. That's it from me, man. That's it from me. That's all the shit that I have to say about this. Well, I could talk all day. It's probably evident. So as I said, this whole coffee and video games thing is very much evolving. I'm trying to figure out what this is going to look like long term. I think right now this is how it's going to look like, visually. But in terms of how we want to make this content, I'd like to have some people, coming on board and chatting and shit, to me, some back and forth, some other voices in this. So we'll see. That's not going to be possible every week, but we'll see about getting that going at some point. This is an evolving concept. So if you have any feedback, if anyone watches this on YouTube in the future, or I'm not looking for just you suck, do better. Although, say that if you like. But, let me know what sort of things that we're doing here work for you, and the other bits that, how's this going to look? I'm still going to ultimately do what I want to do, but, it'd be nice to sort of head in a direction that works. But either way, this has been me. I've been talking about video games. I long ago finished my coffee. That's what we do. We stream this. This very video is being streamed from 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning, English time, British time, I should say, whatever. GMT or BST, whatever it happens to be. 10 o'clock every Sunday morning, is this podcast. That will get onto YouTube a week later, about 1 o'clock, the following week. So we also stream every Thursday at twitch.tv/The Restart Collective. Me and my pal James, who you see down there in the pixel art as well. We stream through our backlogs. We go back and forth going through our backlogs, trying to get through some old games, man. We're trying to make a dent in those backlogs. We do that every Thursday at 7 o'clock, English, British, whatever time. Those will end up on YouTube the Monday after they have been streamed. Also at 7 o'clock. But at the moment we are still catching up with old streams. So right now we are uploading 3 of them a week on Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday. When we are caught up with our streams, then it will just be one upload of that a week on a Monday, plus coffee and video games. So that's what you can do. Like and all that good stuff if you want to see more of this sort of thing. And I will see you next time. Adieu.